Are you a fan of Alex Hormozi's content, and have you ever wondered how it applies to real estate? What is going on, my friends? I've got another fun guest for you today. A friend of mine, Christian Stubbs, who is a peer in the industry out of Laguna Hills, California. Christian, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to talk to you. Christian is definitely one of the sharper minds that I have met in our industry. And it's been fun to see his growth. Christian, just for context for the audience, how long have you been in the business, and what is the size of the operation that you are currently running, and how much production did you guys do in 2024?
Yeah, so I got into the business in 2019, and I should preface by saying I got into the real estate space with the intention of starting a business, not with the intention of being the number one agent in my area. But I got in June of 2019. I jumped in full time, and I had 6 months of savings set aside. And I was like, I'm either going to make it happen, or I'm going to go back to the job that I hated. And in 2020, so about 6 months later, I ended up starting my team now, Onyx Homes. So I've been in the business for a little over 5.5 years. We started the team a little over 5 years ago now. We just had our 5th birthday in January. And in my first 2 years of personal production, I did a total of about $1.1 million in GCI. And then last year, and I jumped completely out of sales in 2020. So for that's kind of my personal sales background. And then for my company, my team last year, which my entire job is just to grow my team, we did 185 transactions for 185 million in volume in 2024. And that was our best year yet. That was about a 30-40% growth over the previous year. And I think we're like 50 some odd days into the year. We've sold so far this year over $1 million in volume every day, which is awesome. Putting us on pace to have another really big year.
That is awesome, my friend. So basically, been in the business a relatively short period of time, built a incredible organization, we're talking to a high caliber real estate professional in this interview. So you and I are both fangirls, disciples, however you want to say it, of Mr. Alex Hormozi, who's blown up on social. You had the good fortune, made the smart move of attending one of his workshops recently. And I was watching some videos that you did, but I wanted you to break down kind of like two of the main themes that you got from those workshops. Let's start with more, better, new. Can you explain that concept
to
folks?
So there were I will say 3 major lessons learned from the workshops on like a higher level of how to look at business and both sales. 2 of them directly relate to us as real estate agents, right? Salespeople. The first one is more, better, new. And the theory here is, or the idea of this is, you ask yourself the question is, am I doing anything that's already working? And for most real estate agents, the answer is yes. Something you're doing is working. Maybe it's open houses, maybe it's cold calling, maybe it's door knocking, maybe it's doing networking events, maybe it's paid ads, maybe it's social media, whatever it is. Something that you're doing is probably already working. And the best way to grow your business is to do more of what's already working, to put it as simply as possible, right? So the framework of more, better, new, it literally is that doing more of what's already working is better than doing what you're already doing and trying to make it better. Because let's think of it from as simple as possible. Is, let's say, like, I know you cold call for a lot of your business, right? You do a lot of expired and stuff. So you have your script. You've probably been doing it for a long time, and you know that it works. Fair. You could, if you said, Christian, I want to grow my business, I want to do twice as many sales. I could be like, well, you could probably just call twice as many people, and it would definitely happen, right? Like that would be a surefire way to grow the business. But you could also go, instead of doing more, you could say, well, I don't want to do more. I want to do it better. And you could change your script. Now, what could happen is it could get better, but changing it could also make it worse. You could cut your sales in half by changing a script and testing that for the next year. So inherently doing something, trying even to do it better, is just risky because you don't actually know if you're going to make it better. And new is even riskier because it's taking something you probably have never done before, and instead of doing more of something that you already know works, or taking something you already do well, making it better, you're just going to try something totally new. So that would be like in your same example, if I was just talking to you, and instead of saying, hey, just do more calls, we could say, okay, let's work on the script. And if you're to say, no, I just want to try social media and I'm going to like become famous on TikTok and that's where I'm going to get all my business from, totally new. And there's like a whole new set of learnings that need to happen over here versus your, 5-10 years of experience you have over here, and just doing more of that is going to grow the business, right? So that's the concept overall. I'll let you kind of poke and ask questions there. And then I have a story from my personal this last 18 months that I'll share on More Better New as well.
Yeah, no, it's such a enlightening framework, because it's one of those things I feel like you inherently know when you stop to think about it, but once somebody crystallizes it like that, it just makes all the sense in the world. And I don't know about you, I have wasted so much time, money, and energy chasing shiny pennies, and I feel like it's almost a trap of this industry. Is you listen to a podcast, you go to a conference, somebody's selling something, and it's always the new shiny sexy thing that you don't realize there's a learning curve, there's a nuance, there's a J curve to go through. It just appears like the get rich quick scheme that you haven't implemented yet.
Yeah. And I'll give very real life example for this. So I gave you kind of a brief timeline for my company, but when I started in 2020, the thing that turned me on from going in my first 5 months, I did, I don't know, 3 or 4 sales, whatever. Let's say for reference, 60, 70,000 in GCI my first 5 months, 6 months. The next 12 months, I did 380. And the only difference was I found lead gen, right? I say we because we were a small team at the time. And for us, it was paid ads, right? We found Google pay-per-click and we found Zillow right off the bat. We were putting $1 into the Zillow machine and getting $4 or $5 out every single month. And I was thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. Can we do more of this? Before I knew anything about, obviously, this framework. And I'm like, shoot, if I'm spending $1,200 a month and we're doing a deal a month, I don't care what your price point is, do more of that. And we did. And we scaled up from 1,200 to 2,500 to 5,000 to 10,000 to 15 to 25,000. And then we were completely bought out of the market. And that took us basically to $50 million in our first year as a team in sales. And for me doing whatever the volume was, but like 380 in GCI was the first year. The second year, we moved, without going too much in the weeds, we basically said, okay, we're really good at online leads and converting those into deals, and that money machine works. Let's do something totally new. Let's try mailers. Let's spend 10 grand a month mailing to a neighborhood that's totally dominated by a farming agent. Yeah. And we did that for a year and spent $120,000 and got not one singular lead. Yeah. And if I would have put that $10,000 a month into my thing that I already knew worked, I would have 4 or 5x my money there. So literally by choosing to do something new, I could have spent more. So more, better, new. I could have definitely spent more if I wanted to. But if I was already like, gosh, I'm already spending a ton of money, which we were, a ton of money on ads every single month. If I would have just said, what if we just convert these leads better, right? What if we implement some tweaks to the CRM? Let's do some role play every day instead of once a week. Let's, make some automations. Let's do something better. No, let's just totally do something new that we don't know anything about. And that lit a ton of money on fire, like a lot of money on fire. And more importantly, it slowed, and we had a dip in business over the next 2 years because we spent 2 years trying to find something new that worked. Now go back 18 months ago, I mentioned this is my story, is that's probably about 2 years ago now. I was just like, we're not doing anything new anymore at all. We're going back to what we already know works. We know we convert online leads at a really high level, and that's what we're doing. We did that about 18 months ago, and go figure, we doubled the business in the last 2 years. And that was only by doing more of what already worked. So this is on a team level, but I gave the story on an individual level in the beginning, but I talk to my agents all the time. So I did a coaching call with one of my agents, and she was getting traction. She's going after assisted living facilities and looking to place downsizers into assisted living facilities. Okay. So she's getting traction. She's getting people signed up, and she's having a lot of really good conversations. And she's like, okay. And we're kind of building, right? Every coaching call, we're saying, okay, now we got to work on this. We're building towards this lead funnel that she wants to have. And we jump on a call and she's like, okay, Christian, I got an idea. I'm going to send all of these mailers to 6-bedroom houses that are going to be like these sober living facilities. I'm like, hold on a second.
Total left
How is
field.
this tied to this? And they're like, well, it's not, but like I can also get deals from that. And by the end of that call, the agent realized that they got stuck here. This is what happens most of the time. We get stuck here on the thing that we're working on. So instead of overcoming the hurdle or breaking through the wall or whatever it is on the thing that we're already doing, it's so much easier to just start something new that we don't know if it's going to work or not. And we always think it's going to work when we start something new, but that's the easier thing as opposed to breaking through where we're stuck.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like a lot of times it's just the need for novelty, right? As human beings, like we always want to have something new and exciting. And it's just like you're asking your business to like scratch an emotional or a psychological itch that it's really not its purpose. And I feel like a lot of agents just don't, and I've been guilty of this as well. You forget that you've got a finite amount of time, money, energy, focus, bandwidth, like, and your success as an entrepreneur is basically how effectively can you place that in the spot where you get the most leverage. So like, what are some other ways that you see agents screw this up? Because you coach a lot of newer agents. I mean, you coach a lot of agents, period. But like, what are the other mistakes along these lines that you see agents making?
Well, that's a great question. This week, yesterday, actually, at my team meeting, we do every single week with my team. I always put in the beginning of the team meeting, I always share something 10, 15 minutes that I want our agents to be able to immediately implement into their business to help them make more money. And the lesson, if you will, for this week was what does it take to do a deal? And what is the activity actually worth, right? Because we know what a deal is worth. And it's really hard to like, if you're a new agent right now and you're thinking, gosh, I just feel so far away from a deal, I get it. There's long sales cycles in this business. You have to put in usually 3 months of work before you get any payoff, literally at all. So I always like to tie into the actual activities. So these are real numbers for my team, mind you. Now I'm gonna have to round off a little bit because I don't have my numbers in front of me, but I broke it down to our agents on average, this is so far this year, have had to make 458 phone calls in order to do a deal. And it was something like 55 conversations and 39 appointments, right? And this is one of the benefits of tracking your numbers, which if you're not, you definitely should, because you know these things. So our agents were sitting there looking at it, and it's like every 458 phone calls you make, you do a deal. And for us and our average price point, that means literally picking up the phone and dialing is worth $56. Now, if you had a machine that every time you picked up the phone and dialed somebody, $56 was deposited in your bank account, or even better, you just got cash, you would pick up the phone way more. And the next thing I looked at was, what does it take to do a deal, right? So that's what the activity is actually worth. The thing of what does it take to do a deal in our market, a deal a month is a good, that's like, you're going to make 300K in GCI if you do a deal a month. Our average price point is 1.1. Average commission is 26,000. So if we do a deal a month, you're on pace to do 312 in GCI. So based on those average numbers, and these are not top performers, this is the average across my team, is if you work 20 days a month, I would argue most realtors work more than 20 days a month, but let's just say you worked a normal 5-day-a-week job, 20 days. If you made 23 phone calls on my team every day, 5 days a week, you would make $312,000 if you're average. And that, just like watching that in my meeting sink in, is just like, wow, why am I not making $312,000? The next thing I pulled up, I just said, hey, I just took follow-up boss from yesterday, right, the day before, and of a team of 55 agents, Chris, guess how many have made more than 23 phone calls the day before?
Less than 10%.
More than 10%. 9 out of 60 agents made more than 23 phone calls. Now, mind you, it was from a Tuesday, so maybe they all took the day off on Tuesday. We don't do anything.
No.
But like, still,
it was a leap year. So
yeah, but still, like that is the reality. Is like there is not this massive moat between where you're at right now and success in this business. And a lot of agents, I think, get stuck in either the shiny penny, the stuff we were talking about earlier, but I think a lot of agents get stuck in, I just have to do so much to do a deal that they don't do anything, or they do very little. And if you can break it down to, if you could just make 23 calls per day, you're going to be successful, right? And I think that, and then the action to that is so much easier.
yeah, well, I love when you boil it down to the math, because I feel like when you figure out the math equation, then it becomes very clear like what the inputs need to be to get the desired output. And oh, by the way, if you want to be a rock star and make 600 grand instead of making 23 phone calls, like you could probably figure out how to make 46 phone calls per day, right? Like, or, triple that. So yeah, no, that's awesome.
Let me zoom in on that real quick, because especially with us starting on Talking More Better New, that's what all of our agents expect me to say, right? Is if you want to make more money, just make more calls, which actually isn't true. It's actually less. Let me explain. Is if you are, if you're that agent that's stuck or starting or wanting to like kick the next gear, if you make in 23, whatever the number is, but if you make your 23 calls a day and you start making your 300,000, you're going to get better at your job.
Inevitably,
It'd right? You're going to be like, ooh, that phone call didn't go very well. I shouldn't say that anymore. Now, hopefully you're doing coaching stuff. You're talking with Chris, your team leader. You're in different groups, right? You're reading books. You're listening to, I don't read anything, but listening to audiobooks. You're doing things to better your sales skills. So if you do your 23 calls a day, you're going to make money. You're going to improve your sales skills. And hopefully you're doing a little bit extra to grow it as well too. What I end up seeing is that is the average. By nature of the average, half of our team converts better than that, and half of our team converts worse. So the top producing agents, they need to make it's sick. They need to make 6 calls a day to sell a deal a month.
Yep.
Right. And then it's just the consistency to do that. Now, sure, they can still make 23 calls and make truckloads more money. But we know in this business, not everybody wants to make multiple 6 figures. A lot of people are cool with making hey, I want to work, however many hours, and I want to make 100, 125, 150. And I'm cool. Not everybody's like psychopaths like you and I. We need money like we need fresh air.
Right. No, but it's so true, man. It's I tell people all the time, you need to do the volume of the work to actually, number one, put yourself in a position to actually find success, but number two, to actually gain the skills. And even if you're a monkey and you don't review your phone calls and you don't read and you don't listen to podcasts, you could be the lowest IQ person in the world, and if you simply do enough volume, you're just going to learn from experience. And then that same level of activity gets you that much more of a result. So absolutely, man. I love it. Talk to me about the theory of constraints.
Yeah. So the other 2 things that we took away was the theory of constraints and the mind of a CEO, which I'll talk about that in a second. But the theory of constraints is as simple as your business, either as a salesperson or any business, will grow up until it's constrained, and then it will stop growing until that constraint is broken. Think of it like a assembly line at a factory, right? Let's think of Ford making cars. If Ford can make 5 steering wheels a day, they can make 1 engine a day and 4 sets of tires a day, right? How many cars can they make in a day? Well, they can make 1, because they can make, I don't even remember the numbers I said, but 4 of everything else, but they can only make 1 engine. Now, if they were well, how can we make more steering wheels and tires? That is 100% waste of time, because they can't make more cars unless they remove the constraint of the engine. Now, if they all of a sudden say, hey, we figured out how we can make 10 engines a day, now all of a sudden the constraint moves to something else and their business grows 5 times. So how do we tie this back into real estate? I use this in sales. Is every single agent has a constraint. Now, everybody has multiple constraints, but you want to figure out what is the biggest constraint. So how I walk through this with our agents is think of a sales funnel, right? We always think of a sales funnel in top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, right? Very big at the top, very small at the bottom. But let's go way more in detail, right? So if I was asking you, Chris, hey, where, and maybe let's just role play, like not role play this, but like you tell me where your constraint would actually be, I'll walk through. So how I do this is I say, okay, Chris, are you generating leads?
Yes.
Cool. That's not your constraint. Are you having conversations with those leads?
Yes.
Cool. Are you setting appointments with those leads?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Are you meeting those leads?
Yes.
Awesome. Are you getting consultations set up?
Yes.
Okay. Are you meeting at your consultations? Are they showing up for them?
Christian, they're not showing up
Got it.
for the appointments. I'm getting a lot of no-shows.
Okay, so let's fix that one thing. And that is your constraint. Because I could tell you to do more calls, more leads, more conversations, set more appointments. Sure, you're going to sell more. But if we don't fix this constraint right here at this level for you, you're probably just going to you're doing something in here that's creating these no-shows. And that at the end of the day is the theory of constraints. And like, I don't even need to go down because we don't really know where the problem's at. It's somewhere between you might fix this and you might 10x your business right now. And that we walk through that every time we do a goal review, pipeline review with one of our agents. Like that's what we talk through is what is the one thing you need to focus on as a salesperson to grow the business.
Yeah, and I'll say like a good prerequisite of this is like actually track your numbers, right? And the good thing is we're not in a new industry. We're like this is not a new sales cycle. Like there's very industry proven numbers of like, hey, I should have a certain show up rate, I should have a certain conversion rate. So what are some of those constraints that you see new and newer agents like? What would you say are the top 3 constraints that you typically find, and why do agents avoid actually working on the things that would move them forward?
I think there's 2 totally. I might throw you for a loop for this one. The first most obvious one is most agents just don't work very hard or at all. So let's brush that aside, right? Because if you're watching this, that's not you. The second one is they don't know what to do or how to do it. And this is at fault of one of 2 people, team leader or the agent choosing not to learn. So what I see constantly with our team,
or both,
yeah, sure, that's a good one. What I see constantly with our team is we have brand new agents that come in, and all of the ones that are successful, they say something, or they give the attitude of something along the lines of, "Hey, Christian, obviously whatever you guys are doing is working. I just want to learn exactly what that is, and then tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it." Cool. And like as a team leader, we have a ton of training. We have a very proven process. And as long as they learn the process and do the work, they're going to be successful. Like it's just going to happen. But so we see brand new agents that come in and do that. And so the other point is we see a lot of agents that have been at another brokerage, brand new agents, let's say, for another brokerage for 6 to 12 months. And they're finally looking at like, gosh, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm going to start looking at options. And then they'll join. And then the hard part for us is at that point, they're like, I've spent all my savings and I need to go get a job. And it's like almost too late. And it sucks because like it's so sad to see that an agent just, like most offices, they do a meeting on whatever day, everybody brings donuts and it's a pitch fest for the vendors. And nobody's talking about how to sell anything. And on top of that, if you don't have leads, who the hell are you supposed to do this stuff with? It's like go door knock and go cold call, and then they don't even tell you how or what to do. Yeah. So I think that is the reality. I say this openly, but I think the traditional real estate brokerage model is completely broken, especially for new agents. I think if a brand, and obviously I'm biased, I run a team as well as you, but I think if you're a brand new agent or anywhere near, if you're not making 6 figures, join a team. If you're making 200,000-300,000 and you want to make more than that, but you don't want to take on a lot of overhead risk and you don't want to spend a ton of money, join a team. And I think the traditional brokerage model is for agents like you, Chris, that want to crush and make tons of money, and you're fine taking on risk and overhead yourself, but you don't want to be your own broker. You don't want to deal with that nonsense. You just want to go sell. And I think the traditional brokerage route is fine for the top 2% of agents, but for the other 98, it doesn't work anymore. And the business is only getting harder and easier, right? It is 100 times easier for an agent to join us and be successful than it is for them to just go out on their own and do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the way it's going. And one thing I'll touch on with splits, because this is a conversation I have a lot. I don't know if you do too, is like agents will get hung up on like, yeah, but if I go down the street to XYZ, I'm going to get a better split. And I think what we've done as an industry is the brokerages have responded to that demand, but because they don't have the margin, they're not able to offer the support, the services, the training, and all that. Like they're basically just Walmart operating on a 1% margin. So it's like, hey, it's going to be a terrible experience, but we're cheap, you know? Yeah, anyway.
Well, most of the time they say it's going to be a wonderful experience, over promise and under deliver. But no, I think it's, I mean, the split conversation, we honestly, I don't hear it very often. Maybe it's because we're so transparent up front. Like our comp is on our website. And if you try to apply to join our team, like you can't not see it. We want to make sure you know what we're all about before somebody would ever apply. So maybe that's one of the reasons we don't hear it. But we have agents all the time that are leaving other offices from 60-70% splits to join us as brand new agents at 40%. And they're like, yeah, I see the value. And that's the job of the team leader is if it's not, we're talking about Alex Hormozi, for your offer to your agents, it has to be so good that the right person, that's the key, the right person would feel stupid saying no. And we feel like we've done that with our team. And I feel like that's probably the biggest lever most team leaders have to pull is just make your offer better for the right agent. I think a lot of team leaders get stuck trying to be all things to everybody, which is what a brokerage is for. But the split conversation, at the end of the day, it's as simple as, do you want to have a high split or do you want to make money? Which one is it? Because we've had plenty of agents that have been on our team and they left for higher splits. And I can think of 2 agents ever in 5.5 years that have left for higher splits and have actually made any money. Because I know the numbers for my team, and like if somebody else needs to go learn it on their own, that's totally fine. But of agents that join our team, 90% of their business is generated by the team, right? So like the split doesn't even matter on a company generated deal anyway for most teams, right? Your comp plan definitely matters. But that's the big conversation when splits do come up, it's like, yeah, 90% of the deals for the first year are going to be company generated. And the split's going to be the same pretty much wherever you go. And then the way that we structure our team is they can graduate up into higher splits as they get more experience, right? So that's how we do it, which is not the right way to do it for all teams, right? The reality is, as a company, the higher splits they offer, the less like help support stuff they offer. Like that's just business, right? You use Walmart as a fantastic example. There can be no frills because everything's so cheap. Versus if you go shop at Louis Vuitton, you're getting champagne upon arrival. And the only reason they can do that is because they're selling $5,000 handbags that cost $200, right? They make tons of margin on the deals. But that's a business model. And there's a lot of people in both of those stores. And the question is like, do you want to be, from a business owner perspective, do you want to be a Walmart or do you want to be a Louis Vuitton? They're both super wealthy, right? So like you can be successful either way. Yeah. But as an agent, where do you want to shop?
Yeah, totally. Well, Christian, you've been very generous with your time, my friend. Any parting words of wisdom that you would leave an agent with to crush it in 2025?
If you have something that already works, do more of it. If you are like, Christian, I can't do anymore. Like I am knocking on 150 doors every single day. I'm doing all of this stuff. Then focus on doing it better. And if you just like going back to the more better new, right? Is if you just I say door knock, cold call, make whatever it is, right? You could just door knock and say, do you want to sell your house? And somebody's going to say yes. You can knock on doors until your feet are bleeding. Somebody's going to say yes. Yep. At some point, it doesn't make sense to do more, and it makes sense to get better at it. And instead of door knocking on 150 doors a day and saying, do you want to sell your house? Maybe you start door knocking and saying, hey, I brought a CMA for the neighborhood. Do you want to see what your home's worth? And I promise you'll sell more houses, right? Not that that's the right thing to say, but like, it's certainly better than do you want to sell your house? Yeah. And then if you cannot do any more of anything, and if you cannot do it any better, then you can try something new. And that is for an agent that's already doing something that works. And I pretty much guarantee you can do more or better. Don't even think about new. I've lost tons of money every time I've thought about doing something new. That's for somebody that already has something that is working. If you're an agent that is either starting from rock bottom or starting from zero or kind of restarting, kickstarting your career, I would find a team. I would find a real estate agent that you can copy and paste. So like if you were to join Chris's team, if you're in his market, forget joining his team. And if you're like, Chris makes a lot of money, he's a good agent, I want to be like him, I'm just going to do exactly what he does. And again, if your skill level is less than Chris's, which it might be, he's a stud, then you're going to have to do more than him, right? If he makes 100 calls and you make 100 calls and he's better, he's going to make way more out of the 100 calls. So you don't need to recreate the wheel. The one thing that I love about this business, but it's also incredibly frustrating, is I know an agent that makes $1 million a year door knocking. I know an agent that makes $1 million a year cold calling. I know an agent that makes $1 million a year only doing open houses. I know an agent that makes $1 million doing social media, and so on down the line. None of them do more than one thing well. So find the one thing that you like the most or hate the least, and just master that one thing. The best way to do it is by copy and pasting somebody that's already successful.
And that, my friends, is where I will leave you. That is absolute gold. Thank you, Christian. I know your office is in Laguna Hills. Remind me of the metro that you serve, and we'll make sure to include your information in the video for any and all referrals.
Yeah, we service Southern California. So our home base is in Orange County. We also service LA, Los Angeles, the Inland Empire, and like North San Diego as well too. So if you want to hit us up in any of those areas, I make a lot of agent facing content as well too. So if you want to check me out on Instagram, just my first and last name, Christian Stubbs. Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.